The State of the Nation address by President Cyril Ramaphosa drew mixed reactions, but the extension of the special COVID-19 distress grant for 3 months and the TERS relief scheme for a further month was widely welcomed. Building the economy again to create and recover all the lost jobs was also prominent. The President announced that Electricity Regulation Act will be amended within the next 3 months to increase the licensing threshold for embedded electricity generation to augment Eskom's supply, while a set of reforms for SOEs has been outlined by the Presidential SOE Council. Lerato Fekisi is now with Professor Ronney Ncwadi from the Nelson Mandela University to talk more about economic matters linked to the SONA. Lerato, a very good morning to you.
A very good morning to you, Desiree. I think you're right by saying that there were definitely mixed emotions about President Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address yesterday. A lot of people saying that it was a rehash of what he said last year, but also some people saying that they are very happy that he didn't make empty promises. A few things that stood out was his harsh stance on corruption, saying that they need to hopper hard on corruption at a national, also provincial level, going into provincial level and saying they actually need to make sure that we have professional people working among the municipalities. Also speaking very hard about the fact that he wants to make sure that he revives the economy by trying to create more jobs. But the question is, how do you create more jobs when 2 million have already been lost due to the COVID-19 pandemic? But joining me this morning, a man who knows a lot about economics, is Professor Ronney Ncwadi from the University of Nelson Mandela University. Professor Ncwadi, just first your stance and your views on the State of the Nation address.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the State of the Nation address presented by the President last night was most comprehensive State of the Nation address ever presented. He presented that speech with passion, cheerfully, and with meaningfulness. And you could see that part of that presentation had kind of a report back of what he said, what had been achieved, e.g. the smart cities, and also paved the way going forward. And that speech was actually relevant for the kind of times we're living in. He spoke about economic reforms, economic restructuring, as well as he addressed the issues of COVID-19. He says and one of the priorities is to fight COVID-19. And of course, he didn't leave out the households, such as the COVID-19 social grant that has been given. And he also mentioned the impact it had up to this point. So to me, it was quite actually a comprehensive address. But the gap is between, I think, the president's speech and us as citizens. The take would be as to what are we going to do about it. It cannot be the president. We cannot expect the president to sit in that municipality and do the employment and do the interviews. We are the one, the officials, that money is rolled out to us. How are we going to carry or execute what the president said in the State of the Nation address? If you talk about corruption, it is that official that's sitting behind the desk, not the president. You know, he paves the way. He says he has a plan. So we cannot say, oh no, you can't fight corruption. You know, he has to set, the structures to do that, which he did. And what I like the most in that speech, what's really highlight for me, was when he recognized the role of the private sector. He says the private sector is the one that's going to create these jobs. That was the best, because the government cannot do it all the time. He says the government will create environment to do that.
Professor Ncwadi also did harp a lot on economic reform, saying that we need to unlock the economy, specifically focusing on the energy supply. What were your views on that? And are you happy with the procurement of 200 more watts of electricity back into the country?
Yes, look, when you talk about the issues of job creation, of course, you talk about support to the small businesses, tax relief, as well as the loan guarantee scheme. But having said that, we need a very good energy supply. He spoke about the reforms in terms of the SOE, centralized SOE systems, where they will be able to monitor, the performance of the SOEs, including Eskom, where he spoke about, unbundling of Eskom. It has been unbundled. So what he referred to there is that Eskom's, work they got to up the game, So the centralized SOE kind of a system is going to, in fact, include Eskom as well in terms of that accountability. So I think, to me, the plan is there to ensure that Eskom does what they have to do. As I said, the plan is there. it's calling now. That's why towards the end of the SONA, he was calling for sincerity. He was calling for people to be dedicated. He was calling for people. He was trying to build that, create that passion, that patriotism. It is about the officials at the end of the day. The plan is good. And as I speak here today as well, I'm just also reiterating what the president said. Let the whole nation work now. Let's, instead of just cutting down that and criticizing it and cutting it to pieces, let's all say, hey, here's a plan. What can I do? What is it I can do for my country? That should be the spirit now in the days like these of COVID-19.
Speaking about the officials on the ground, you also spoke a lot about making sure that at a municipal level they employ professionals, something that has been lacking for some time because most of the time is catered deployship, and like you were speaking yesterday, there are a lot of corruption that's happening at provincial level. Should there also be more to provincial level, more monitoring and evaluation in terms of the credibility of people, professional people that are employed at that level?
Indeed. You referred to the training that is given to the officials, which is important because being an official doesn't necessarily mean that you're highly educated. You're elected by the people, and we know the situation in South Africa. So training them and ensuring that they are right skills in those positions will definitely help because it takes a human skill to being able to be productive in the economy. However, the service delivery takes place at the local municipal level. I think I'm looking forward to for the budget speech. I think we need to review the budget allocation in South Africa because the municipalities get really a very small part of the cake. The large part goes to national, goes to provincial, and then it goes to the local level, and that's where the service delivery is taking place. These municipalities are constrained. They are surrounded by people that are unemployed, that cannot pay their services and tax and so forth. So how do you expect the municipalities to function effectively without sufficient funding coming that way? But the start is get first the right people in those positions. Get people that know, that are educated, that know the accounting procedures and how to handle the budget. Then the others will follow. For example, the budget now must also talk in terms of helping the municipality to do that service delivery because at the moment the money they get from government, from the national, is very, very small compared to what the other levels of government are getting.
Last, Professor Ncwadi, you did harp a lot on in terms of the health sector, but I felt that in terms of the education sector, not too much emphasis was done. You were speaking with me earlier on, you were saying that it's such a critical sector, and you are in education yourself, and I was perhaps desiring for him to speak more in terms of education, especially now with the COVID-19 pandemic. What would you like him to focus more in terms of education, especially looking at that such a huge economic driver for the country?
When it comes to education, yes, you're quite right, and that maybe, that will be captured now in the speech by the Minister of Finance in the next few weeks or full week. However, the education is comprehensive. It starts from the primary right up to the universities. COVID-19 has exposed this inequality. For example, schools in the townships that don't have facilities in the rural areas, no toilets, no water, no internet connections. Some kids could work at home via Teams and stuff, but you find there are schools with the same education department that can't afford those things. So I think education should cover across all spectrum, right from early childhood development, including the primary schools, right up to universities, to ensure that there's enough funding that can improve the infrastructure of the education, because it's about infrastructure. The syllabus is the same everywhere, but it depends where are you offering that syllabus. You offer a syllabus in a school where there's no laboratory, where there's no library, so you're not going to get a good quality student from there. So we need to equalize the playground, make sure that all the schools have the necessary facilities that are needed. I look forward to the Minister of Finance to actually touch on that.
Well, that's Professor Ncwadi from the University of Nelson Mandela saying that the speech by President Ramaphosa yesterday was quite comprehensive. He's quite impressed with the speech, but saying in the end, all the president did was just to lay the foundation. But now the builders are citizens like you and I, are officials on the ground to make sure they are competent, they are corrupt-free, so that we can achieve the economic freedom that the president spoke about yesterday. For now, let's go back to you in studio.